That is brutal, my friend. That is brutal. I still don't get it. But as a tactician, the footballing brain, utterly useless. Welcome back to TFW, guys, because it's a Monday and I've got my laptop here with loads of your topics. First off, thanks for sending them in on our community tab on Sunday night. There's so much to go through from such a crazy weekend. I feel like I always say that because it's so true. First off, and Dead Tadsonger says, I've lost all respect for Arsenal as a Premier League team. Why do people still consider them a big six? That is brutal, my friend. That is brutal. Whether you've lost respect for them is obviously your opinion. Why do people still consider them a big six? Because they are. The big six isn't just like who's in the top six at the moment. It's who's consistently been in there, which pre the last however many years, 3 or 4 years maybe, Arsenal were in the top four for like 20 odd years under Arsene Wenger. They've always been in the top six for the last however many years, 23 now. Yeah, they're a big six. They've won Premier Leagues. They're in financially in the biggest in the league and club-wise and everything. So that's why people consider them. As to whether they'll finish top six, I highly doubt it considering their recent form. Like, it's one thing to be assumed that you're going to lose to Man City and be swept aside, but to then actually go and put in such a poor performance where it just looks like they always knew that Man City were going to win. It's kind of embarrassing. That's where, and believe me, mate, you're not the only one, people would have lost respect for Arsenal, and no more so than some of the Arsenal fans, but yeah, that seems pretty brutal. But we'll move on to inconsistent Man United because Mo's asking, why do you think United are so shit at playing teams outside the top six? Are they that one-dimensional? Do they have any tactical flexibility, or is it counter-attacking all they can do? Saying counter-attacking is all they can do is not a bad thing. Like, United clearly have the players that aren't going to be able to dominate the ball and to really break down teams. So if they understand the squad and understand that they're best when playing quick, free-flowing counter-attacking football, fair enough to them. Like, saying it's all they can do, it's their plan A because it's what they're good at. But yes, tactical flexibility, they really are failing. So they don't have a plan B. We've literally, I think me and Paddy talked about it on the Q&A a few weeks ago. Every time they come up against a team who's willing to attack, they're spacing behind, United are fine. Man City and Tottenham last week, prime examples of that. When they come up against a team that sit deep and defend, they have to learn to break them down. Every big team has to do it because there's 14 teams outside the top six who, more or less, all of them will be playing a low block and a very deep defence when playing against United, and they have to figure it out. I wouldn't say they're shit at playing against these teams. They're just really struggling in areas to kind of break them down. They're not doing anything drastically different. Next up, Lewis Pagano said, yes, Duncan Ferguson has done great in the first few matches. He has. Big dunk at Everton, beating Chelsea, drawing at United. Should he get the job full time? People who are saying that are wrong. As an Everton fan, he's a legend, but we need to aim high to meet the aspirations we have. This is something, and again, it's going to come up later as well. I still don't get it. I still don't get this, like, promoting a former player. In Duncan Ferguson's case, he's been at the club for, I think, like 6 years coaching. Like, he's working well towards, being a good coach. But this is something ridiculously difficult they're asking him to match, the funding that they've put into the club over the last few years, for him to match their ambitions, which is to break into the top six and eventually the top four. That is ridiculously difficult for any manager, as they found out with the likes of Marco Silva and others before him. So why they think someone like, Duncan Ferguson could come in and do it, it's ridiculously difficult. Everyone pointed out last time I brought up this thing of managers bringing former players. Yes, Zidane did it. Zidane came in and won 3 Champions Leagues in a row. But apart from that, things aren't going so well. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer we're talking about. Frank Lampard as well, recently fallen off the rails at Chelsea. I think Ferguson's done okay in the last few bits. But when it really gets difficult and Everton have to figure something out, I'm not so sure that it will be the best thing moving forward. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer rode the wave and it was fucking awesome for Man United, and then everything came crashing down. And he's now at a worse point, actually, where they sacked Mourinho last season. So, yeah, I agree. He is a legend, but you need to aim higher. As for Chelsea, Atuna Isak said, were Chelsea unlucky in the matches against the Cherries and West Ham, or do they lack the instinct of making their chances count? Arif Siddiqui is asking what the hell happened. Is it a dip in form or something radical like splashing the cash? And Zaman Arzu said, do you think Chelsea youngsters are overrated? They're not overrated. This seems, again, a very sort of like easy thing to say on the internet these days. Someone has a few poor games. They're overrated. No one's overrated them. They were doing brilliantly, and now they're not. It's a dip in form because they're young players. That's it. Overrated, will scrap that one. That's a pretty harsh comment. This is exactly what I was just talking about. Frank Lampard's come in, And yes, he could put an arm around a player and say, you're going to be the future. And then he can say, we're going to play this young, brilliant attacking football. It's only going to get you so far. I said it and I say it again. If top managers can't do these jobs, it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely that a newly promoted manager, bringing in a former player, and Lampard's had one season at Derby, which he did well, is going to be able to suddenly pull this out of the bag. I'm not saying it's impossible. It is just very, very difficult. This is Lampard's first test. He may well screw up, in the next few games. He'll probably get back on the horse, and I'm sure over time things will be fine. Well, fine for what they're achieving at the moment. But in terms of taking Chelsea back to being a top club, it's extraordinarily difficult. That's why the guys at the top of the game are the top managers, because they're the top managers who have learned and they've proven that they can take teams to the top of the league. I mean, I'm trying to think now there is no guy who's been promoted as a club legend, apart from Zidane, as we mentioned, who's now at the top of the game, after a certain amount of years. It just doesn't happen, and I think Lampard's learning, and that's what Chelsea have got to accept. As to were they unlucky? A little bit unlucky. They didn't make their chances count. A bit of inexperience maybe, a bit of eagerness to try and keep their form going. I wouldn't panic too much as a Chelsea fan. Top four is definitely still a real possibility. Moving on to some European action, Florian Hoofnagel, I think it's pronounced. Is Gattuso really the right man for the Napoli job? The man only knows how to fight and very clearly isn't much of a tactician, as previously seen at AC Milan. Gattuso is the exact example. Legend at AC, brilliant on the pitch, used all his brawn and all his fight to become a feared midfielder. But as a tactician, the footballing brain, utterly useless like we saw at AC Milan. I can't believe that Napoli, honestly, don't get me wrong, things weren't going great under Ancelotti, but you're going to fire Ancelotti, who's been one of the best managers this century in terms of what he's won. An unbelievable coach, right? He can't fix the problems at Napoli, so we're going to bring in a pretty inexperienced, Gattuso's had a couple of jobs, right? Unproven manager to fix our problems and take us back to fighting Juventus at the top of Serie A. I mean, he's not even a Napoli legend. He's just a Serie A and AC Milan legend. I'd be absolutely amazed. Again, they did lose, by the way, in his first game in the last minute against Parma. If he comes in and has a few good months, fine. But in the long run, I mean, it's hardly like he made his mistakes at AC, but then proved himself. He made his mistakes, got fired, and that's where he left off. I'd be amazed. Honestly, I'd be absolutely amazed if he did something amazing at Napoli. Georgie Sandor's wants to know about Bayern Munich against Bremen 6-1 reaction. This looks like a return to the regular Bayern that we see week in, week out in the Bundesliga normally. Yes, they do have blips. They've had a poor start to the season. 6-1, they were showing their dominance with a higher grade of player. Coutinho getting a hat-trick and getting 2 assists, and he is so much he is a higher level and a higher pay grade than to any other Bundesliga team could afford. Maybe Dortmund if they splashed all their money that they've recouped over the last few years. Coutinho is so much better than the rest of the Bundesliga, and he showed it, and it's 6-1, I guess. There's not really much to say about that. Medina Denic said, what do you think of Coutinho's amazing performance? Again, unbelievable, something he should definitely be doing if he's worth 120 million. That should be it, and he should be doing that against every single team in the Bundesliga again, bar from a few. And lastly, Milan Bindesco said, Ajax have lost the last 3 games and didn't score 1 goal. That is very true, and add on to that, they have been knocked out of the Champions League. Why is it happening? They lost 2 big players. I guess that's an obvious thing. Again, maybe just a blip in form. Ajax, one of these teams, I always say it with the big teams, they dominate regularly. Going through a blip in form, they can get back to doing what they're doing because they know that the way they play and their football is good enough to win games 80-90% of the time. Maybe, yeah, they've lost a few poor performances, especially losing at home last weekend on the Friday night, then losing away at RZ this weekend, and obviously losing at home in the Champions League as well. It doesn't look great, but I don't think they're in major trouble. They're not going to be falling off. I still back them to win Eredivisie this season. But of course, let me know all of your thoughts, because that's the end of our TFW. Really, really good questions. And let us know all your opinions, all your thoughts, your hot takes on the weekend's football every Sunday night. This is actually, though, having said that, the last TFW of the year, because it's Christmas coming up soon. But thank you so much, as always, for leaving all of your thoughts. Let us know more in the comment section down below. But until next time, we'll see you guys later.